From storyflo, news. Riley on news. June 14th. From storyflo. This is your daily audio brief for June 14th. Riley, June 14th. The morning read, 10 stories, balanced sourcing throughout. Let's get into it. First, from World War II today. Mass deportations from Estonia. On June 14th, 1941, the Soviet NKVD started sweeping up thousands of Estonians they labeled suspects, a wave of arrests that historians trace to the first days of the German invasion. The operation unfolded in the early morning. Families were pulled from their homes before breakfast, and the streets of Tallinn emptied as men, women, and children vanished. Eyewitness accounts describe a quiet household turning chaotic, a maid's trembling warning about a phone call from a relative, and the sudden realization that relatives, an uncle, aunt, cousins, even a small child, had already been taken. Those taken were often accused of imagined crimes, and their families were detained alongside them, creating a ripple of fear across the nation. The June 14th arrests marked the beginning of a broader campaign of repression that would scar Estonia's wartime memory, a day still remembered for the sudden, brutal loss of ordinary lives. Next, second, from Dave Bondi's Keeping It Real newsletter. Michigan bill would require employers to let some workers sit on the job. A bill introduced in the Michigan House on June 9th by Reps. Dylan Wegeler would create a right to sit for workers whose jobs can be done while seated. It says employers must provide appropriate chairs, stools, or benches whenever standing isn't required for the task, and it would apply to businesses across the state. If a company forces employees to stay on their feet when sitting wouldn't affect performance, the law would allow a civil fine of $250 per employee for each 2-week period the violation continues. Supporters say the measure would ease physical strain for people in retail, customer service, and similar roles. The proposal is headed to the House Committee on Government Operations, and if it passes, it would kick in 90 days after the governor signs it. Similar right-to-sit statutes already exist in a handful of other states. Up next, third, from Philippa Perry. Do I tell others about my husband's affair? Write to me with any problem or dilemma at email redacted, subject to terms and conditions. Dear Philippa, I would very much appreciate your thoughts on how much of one's personal life you should share with your adult children and how much, if anything, you should leave for them to discover after your death. My situation is this. My husband and I have been married for decades. I was a widow when I married and had young children, and he was divorced with 3 teenage children. The marriage has always been difficult, though we have had some happy times and have managed to achieve a pretty successful blended family over the years. My husband is an emotionally immature man, self-centered, unable to reflect on his behavior, lacking in empathy, unwilling to accept responsibly for his actions. Everything is always someone else's fault, highly sensitive to even the mildest criticism, and given to explosive outbursts and temper tantrums when challenged or when things don't go his way. He can be controlling and domineering, and sometimes very verbally abusive to me. He was jealous, I think, of my children, but things improved when they left for university. One example of his behavior: a few years into our marriage, he had an affair with a work colleague, which came to light when her husband found out and wrote to me about it. He also phoned and was very abusive and threatening. My husband and I worked in the same field, so I think many of our colleagues and friends probably knew what going on, which was humiliating apart from anything else. It turned out that my husband was planning to leave us and was persuading this woman and her small child to move in with him, a flat he was renting at the time. His own son's marriage was only a few months away, so I really don't know how he thought it was all going to work out. But in any case, the affair collapsed once the woman's husband knew. When I tried to talk to my husband about it all, his response was that it was my fault because I hadn't been treating him very well. He has never accepted his responsibility for any of it, or apologized. I now see, with the benefit of hindsight and therapy, I was love-bombed into a marriage he very much wanted, and which happened after only a few months after the death of my first husband and my children's father. I was traumatized and hardly knew, day from night, my sole concern being to provide stability and care and to protect my children. I think I must have seen the marriage, if I thought about it at all, as a safe haven, a retreat from all the confusion, grief, and trauma I was living through.